Transformers, Gundam, both involve war crimes.
No, Optimus!
But that has nothing to do with today's video, where we're going to be going over Transformers figures and Gundam figures, and then comparing the two, because that's the video I decided. Transformers figures are based on a franchise that originated in the 80s as a toy line, which has been accompanied by several animated series and movies throughout the years. The basic principle of Transformers is that they can transform. That's it. Gundam figures, on the other hand, we're going to include model kits in that for the ease of the video, are based on a franchise that debuted in 1979, featuring giant robots or mecha used for combat. Mobile suits and Gundam can have a very militarized look sometimes, and some other times they just look kind of cool. We're gonna start off with one of the new Transformers figures from the Rise of the Beast movie. This is the mainline Voyager class Optimus Prime. This is a very good figure in my opinion. He has a very simple paint job to him, mainly being red and blue,
Well, duh.
with a lot of gray plastic throughout him. His entire design is based off its iconic G1 look, which has had many different interpretations throughout the years. He has a lot of nice mechanical detail on him, but not all figures are this intricate. Some of these third-party figures though. You can see a lot of it in this Optimus's abdomen area and the arm pieces. And compared to an older movie Optimus Prime figure, you can see the figure still has a lot of exposed mechanical details. But if my camera can focus, the amount of detail on the face sculpt is really nice. Down over to the chest, there's a lot of nice detail outside here and on the inside of the chest piece. Further down the figure, I think these legs are sculpted really well. If you take a look over here, you can see just a lot of stuff going on. This Optimus Prime does come with his iconic ion blaster, which looks pretty good in my opinion. Now I do feel like this figure kind of falls flat in the vehicle mode, mainly on the back section. This part here just seems kind of weird, especially with how these feet are. But for positives, there are a lot of nice vehicle mode details on the figure. The front of the vehicle mode also looks really cool. I do like the blue tinted windows. Overall, it isn't that bad of a vehicle mode. Articulation here, you can move the head around. Arms can spin a full 360. Arm rotation. This hand is on a ball joint so it can move in and rotate. You get an elbow bend, waist rotation, a chest rotation for the transformation. Legs can move out, to the side, back. You get a knee bend. The foot can move back and forth, and a foot pivot. Now design-wise, a lot of the Transformers figures have to consider the alt mode of the figure, and this can play into articulation. The reason the chest can rotate is for the transformation into the truck mode. Compared to a Gundam figure, this is the Tamashii Nation's Bandai RX-782 Gundam version anime. Geez, they like their long names in Japan. You can see he has a much simpler and clean design to him that's also a lot more blocky, because the design of the original show was pretty simplistic, similar to the original Transformers, and we'll get to that. The design of mobile suits in Gundam have evolved over time. Now despite this figure not being a model kit, it still is really good. He's not entirely plain either. He does have some panel working going on throughout him. The head sculpt is pretty accurate to the original Mobile Suit Gundam show. The figure has a lot of the classic red, blue, yellow, and white colors. Now the white here isn't a pure white, it's an off-white color. You got a nice metallic gold on the eyes, yellow on the Vulcan guns. Also bring in the bottom part of the leg, and it exposes some inner frame detail. You got its two beam sabers there that can be taken out. There is some quality control issues right over here on the crotch piece, so that makes this figure a 0 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Just kidding. The articulation on this figure is fairly good. The head can move up and down, left to right, waist rotation, a bit of an ab crunch. You get a side to side movement. This piece can move in. These arms can spin a full 360. They can move out like there and all the way up there. Rotation over here and over here. The hand has a ball joint. Legs can move forward, not so much back because the skirt piece isn't movable, and not so much out to the side either. You get a knee bend, rotation, the foot can move side to side and up and down. And this little piece here can move as well. Now this figure comes with the classic shield as well as the beam rifle. Here's the ion blaster compared to the beam rifle, a bazooka, an effects piece for the Vulcan cannons. It's got a bunch of hands that I'm not going to go over. You get a beam saber hilt that's longer than the ones on its back, two regular beam saber effect pieces, a curved banana shaped beam saber effect piece, and then another effects piece with the little bulge here. Now if we look at some other characters in the Transformers franchise that aren't from the live action movies, we'll notice a significant design difference. They tend to be a lot more simple, with some of them even having a blocky design. Now another comparison we can do that might be a bit more fair because these two are in a similar price range is the Studio Series Bumblebee figure alongside the Gundam Universe RX-782. This figure has a nice mold to it and is probably one of the best Bumblebee figures out there. He has a decent head sculpt, which I'm not a big fan of the color of the eyes. The front of the vehicle mode is a chest piece. He has his door wings on the side, some nice mechanical detail in the abdomen, and further down the sculpt of the legs is really good. This figure also has a good range of articulation to it. The head can move up and down, you can rotate, this arm can move out, you can move it back and forth. These pieces do get in the way though. You get an arm rotation, no hand rotation, waist waist rotation, leg can move out, to the side, back, knee bend, a foot pivot, and a rotation. And here is the vehicle mode for Bumblebee. It is a really nice looking vehicle mode, minus this part right here. Now compared to the Gundam Universe RX 782, this figure is a lot more bulkier. It's not a bad figure. The proportions on this figure are definitely way off than what they should be. His legs are absolutely gigantic, but in terms of the rest of the mold of the figure, the head sculpt is really good on this. Got some nice panel lining on the legs, with some on the shoulders and the arms. Here's a look at the back of the figure. You have his backpack. There are some quality control issues on the back right there, and it has some thick ass calves. Here it is next to a high grade RX 782 kit. Sorry if my build quality is shit, and you can tell there's a vast difference in proportions and details on them. And just by looking at the legs, you can see how crazy different the proportions are. This thing's got normal looking legs and feet, while this has more of a mommy please step on me type of legs and feet. It only comes with 2 extra hands. It also comes with a stand adapter, 2 beam saber hilts. They're very different from the series. These are much more rectangular and flat, and you get 2 pieces of candy looking like beam saber effects pieces. These do glow under UV. UV more like you very much should subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my Patreon. Here is the shield. The shield has a really good amount of detail on the inside of it, and the front very much looks like that classic shield, because that's what they were going for. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. And here is its little weapon of war, which also has a good amount of detail on it. With the head being on a ball joint, it's able to look all the way around, and it can spin all the way around. It can look up and down that much. You can bring the arms up about that much. Also, these are on a ball joint, so they can pop off and move around. The bicep area can spin around, and it's very squeaky. 90-degree elbow movement. The hands are on a ball joint. There is ab movement, and the waist movement is very limited. The legs can go up about that high. You get a decent knee bend, and the legs can go back about that much. And the feet can move up and down, and they can move side to side. Now here's an actual model kit. This is Char's Zaku. I'm gonna take the axe out, and I don't feel like removing the hand for this one. This was a really fun model kit to build. In contrast to the RX 782, the design on this figure is definitely a lot more rounded. He does have his mono eye in the center, and this sort of mouthpiece thing with pipes going out to the side is really cool looking. He has spikes on this shoulder and a shield on this side. He's got the backpack on the back. His little skirt piece. The design of the legs is really nice and rounded, and you have some pipes going through here, and then the rest of the sculpt work on the arms is really good. Oh, and then that is a thing that happens a lot with model kits. Pieces kind of fall out of place, which is kind of annoying. Overall, the design of this model kit is really good. There's a lot of good articulation on this. The head can rotate, full 360 arm rotation, the arm can move out, the shoulder piece can move, you get a bicep rotation here and over here, you get an elbow bend, waist rotation, you get an ab crunch, the leg can move out forward, and the leg can move out to the side, you get a rotation, a knee bend, foot movement, and a foot pivot. And what's great about these model kits is that generally you can find them for a pretty cheap price. Now, in terms of smaller figures, we have the Core Class Optimus Prime and this RX 782, which is a part of their Mobile Change Haro line. Both figures are on the smaller scale side of things. This one goes for a lot more chibi proportions because it's meant to look kind of cute, while this one still has that standard Optimus Prime look, although the head is kind of small now that I think about it. This figure does have a lot of decent detail on it, especially for a figure this small. Some of the paintwork on it is done really well also. He does have some hollow bits at the back, which kind of sucks. In terms of articulation, the head can move, arms can move out, you get a rotation, elbow bend, these move in for the transformation, the chest can rotate for the transformation, the legs can move out to the side, back, and you get an elbow bend. This leg can also rotate. The alt mode on this figure is not the best looking, but the robot mode is pretty decent. Still probably not one of my favorite figures though. This version of Optimus Prime does come with a mini version of his Ion Blaster, which isn't just compatible with him, but it's also compatible with larger figures, which is really cool. Compared to this guy, once again his proportions are a lot more chibi-like with the giant head and the smaller body. He's definitely a lot more wider than the other figures. He still has that classic design to him. These arms can move out and around. The head can rotate. From the front he looks decent, and from the back he looks like a hideous mess. In the Transformers role, this is a sin. To transform this, it's very simple. You just kind of like bring everything into place like it should be and just fold it up, and you get a cute little Haro. From the back, it doesn't look too great. Not a whole lot of paintwork on here. You do get the V symbol at the top and some red eyes. It is kind of cool how they got this mouthpiece to be a part of the transformation. I had a unicorn version of this, but I don't know where that is. Also, the beam rifle does work on the Core Class figure. This is a Strike Freedom model kit. This was one of my earlier builds as I was properly getting into Gunpla. For a beginner build, it's not too bad, as long as you don't look at the top or at the shoulders or just anywhere on the rest of the kit. Overall though, the kit has it's Gundam-y Gundam look with the V fins and the dynamicness of it. The kit has a lot of great colors to it, primarily being white with some red, blues, and golds in there. This back piece is detachable and can spread out, giving it an impressive wingspan. This skirt piece is just one one piece. The rest of the kit has that nice stylized Gundam look to it, very angular and edgy. He's got some beam cannons, and he does come with some other accessories, which I'm not going to go over. I want to keep this pretty basic. He's got his vents at the front, a nice skinny waist, some skirt pieces, and the sculpt of the legs looking really good. In terms of articulation, the head can move up and down. You can give it a rotation. Arms can move out, rotation, bicep rotation, elbow bend, ball joints on the hand, get a rotation there. Move this so you can bring the legs out. You can bring them back, a good knee bend, and you can bring it out to the side. These pieces can also move out to the side and come forward. The foot can move, and you get a foot pivot. Now let's take a look at some Transformers with a more simplistic design with these hotshot figures. All the details and color on this figure are really great, and he resembles the original design pretty accurately. Same with the head and the face sculpt, and you can see he's got a few little details on there. You can bring his visor down, which does look really nice and has some detail on it as well. He has some very nice blue eyes, and if you hold it up to a light, it kind of seems like there's some gaps in between them. His face is just a simple gray color. He's got a little bit of panel working on his shoulder, and just like the original, he has an Autobot logo on the top left. The chest piece is just a red color with some nice silver on it. The rest of the body is mostly very red. There's a few little details over here in the crotch piece. This does have some hollow gaps on the legs, unfortunately. And down here at the bottom of the legs, you have a little bit of detail going on. Also, for the back leg pieces, make sure to bring these in. The figure doesn't originally come like that. If you do happen to see it out throughout this review, no you didn't. The figure does have a bit of a backpack and some chunky legs, but so did the original. The inside of the legs look absolutely horrendous though. Like, goddamn, that's bad. And just like the original, you can bring this back piece out and flip it over to the top. Now, on the original figure, you did need a mini-con to do that, but this figure doesn't come with Jolt, unfortunately. Also, I'm a silly little man. This is the correct orientation. I mean, like, does it really matter though? Does it? Now, these top parts on the shoulders might easily untab sometimes, and you just need to line them up right over here on that part. They might pop off throughout the rest of the video if you see it. No, you didn't. Here's a quick look at his hands. There's just a little bit of detail, and unfortunately, the arms are hollow as well. For an accessory, he comes with his engine piece, which is also a weapon. I do like the silver color of the paint. Now, here's the original Armada figure. Unfortunately, I don't have Jolt. If these two hot shots met each other, do you think that they would kiss? Now, this one also has a visor with some details on it. It's not as colorful as this one, and on the original figure, the head is just molded in place and cannot move. Thankfully, the Legacy version does not have that issue. Now, the eyes on the original are a much deeper color of blue, and his face is silver instead of gray, while also being far more expressive. Now, for this figure, you can take the chest piece off, but he can't really hold it. Now, comparing the chest pieces, over here he has a design on this part of the chest, while on this one it's very plain. The silver paint on here is much duller than the silver paint on the newer figure, and the whole design of this thing is done much better on the Legacy version. Now, the crotch piece on the Armada version does have more detail on it. Now, it might be hard to see, but the thighs definitely have more detail on the original version. This leg also does have some hollow points in it. Now, down on the front of the legs, this piece is colored in here, but the Legacy version has much more detail on it. Now, a major thing to note about this figure is that the top of the cart is attached to the arms on the original figure, while the Legacy version doesn't have it like that. Instead, the top of the cart is down behind the legs, and I do think it's a much better choice to have it like that. Another difference is that the front cart piece on the legs are facing different sides. Here's a quick comparison of both of their engines. This one has these engine pieces out into the side, while over here they're facing upwards. This one has that mini-con port in it, but this one kind of teases you by sort of having it in there. And a look at the bottom, you can see that this is much thicker, so that way it can be used as a weapon. And while this one is silver, this one has a slightly bluish color to it. And the original Hotshot can hold the new one's weapons. Now, while I don't have Jolt, I do have many other mini-cons I can use. So we can put this one on the back and push it up, and it immediately fires out this piece. Now, this does reveal a bit more detail on the back of the figure, and this piece also has quite a bit of detail on it as well on the front and some on the back, while the new one doesn't really have a whole lot of detail on this top piece. It does, however, have a little bit of stuff going on in here. Now, for the articulation on this figure, this goes up and down. It can move all the way back. The head can only rotate 360. These little pieces right here can move up, and if you leave them up, you can rotate the arms a full 360. The arms are able to go out that high. Rotation at the biceps, a 90-degree elbow bend. I'm very bad at cutting my nails. You get a waist rotation. You can bring the leg out that much. You can bring it out to the side, and you can bring it back. Now, for a proper knee bend, you're going to need to move this out of the way, and then you can move it up to get a 90-degree knee bend. And then you can also move it from this joint. The feet can move like this, and there's quite a bit of a foot pivot on this. I really like the vehicle mode, and it does look a lot like the originals. And one thing that does bother me is the paint matching at the top here doesn't really match the rest of the figure. It's very noticeable, and I feel like this is something that's definitely going to chip over time. He has some very dark blue tinted windows. There's a little bit of detail at the back of the figure. There's a little gas tank over there. You have the silver on the front and the silver headlights. And this engine piece holds in place really well. But if you take it off, you can see a little bit more detail underneath it, and you can see more of the detail on the silver area. He has a huge front bumper piece, and it doesn't seem like this is properly aligned. Doesn't matter. The underneath is very clean. The figure really compacts into it very well. Now for the articulation on this hot shot, this thing can move. The head cannot move. The arms just have this sideways movement. Arm bend. The legs can spread out. They can move forward and back, and you get a limited knee bend. And that's it. Now side by side with the original hot shot, you can clearly see the differences. This one is definitely much longer, and it's easier to see the color differences between the two. This one has a full spoiler, and you can see Hotshot's head through the back, while this one just kind of has a spoiler cut in half, which is kind of awkward in my opinion. And in the Legacy version, you don't see Hotshot's head, because he's a turtle. These designs at the top are different on both of them, and instead of translucent windows, this one just has some dark blue paint. Here's a look at them from the side view. This one has red inside the wheels, and I do think that it's unfortunate that this one doesn't have any of the saw details on it, because on the original figure, they look really nice. Now here's the Gundam Universe Unicorn action figure, and it's already yellowing. That is more disappointing than the horrors humanity is capable of. Anyways, moving on to the accessories. You get the shield, which does not open and close, a little weapon of war, the backpack, two beam saber hilts that look very different, and two beam saber effects pieces that look a lot like candy. However, there is a reason for why it is this color, and we will get to that in a bit. You get a stand attachment as well as an attachment for the shield, which goes right on there. Please go in there, don't embarrass me. Okay, there we go. And you get this skirt back piece, which you plug in right there, if you have good hand-eye coordination. I'm not entirely sure how I missed that. Here's a look at the front of the figure with the yellow spots mocking me. Now the figure itself honestly feels pretty solid, and the material is very different from the Gunpla model kits. And now I don't know how to explain this, but the figure itself does feel a bit rubbery in some areas. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? And here's a look at the back. Now the figure itself looks alright. The proportions are definitely not show accurate. Just take a look at those shoulder pieces. The color of the psychoframe isn't show accurate either. It feels like it's more of a muscular pink color, and it's exposing its meaty insides. But the reason for this color choice is because it glows under a black light. Here's a better look at it. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up too great on camera. And the beam saber effect piece also glows under UV. Now the gold paint on this figure does look really great. The eyes are a shiny green, as well as the front camera and the back camera. Now for the articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so you can move it around, and you can have him look all the way around as well. His arms are able to move up all the way there. The shoulder pads are also on a ball joint, so they can move around pretty freely. The shoulders can also move back and forth. The bicep area can spin around. The elbows can bend. The arms can rotate. Not really a whole lot of waist movement there, and very minimal movement on the abs. The skirt pieces can move a little bit, however the back one cannot move. Now his legs can go all the way forward like that, and the front skirt pieces can move. The knee bend is pretty bad though, like I can't move this any further, and this piece in the way prevents the leg from moving all the way back. But if you take it off, his leg can move further back. The legs are capable of moving out all the way like that, and they can twist around on the thighs. Feet can move up and down and around, and these right here can move as well. Overall though, the articulation on this is definitely way more limited than a model kit. Now I do want to notice something about the back. On the back of the right leg here, this piece seems like it's bending out a little bit. Also, those marks on the feet are horrible. Now there's more beam saber hilts here, but they don't actually flip out. They're really only just It comes with extra beam saber hilts that are on both sides of his arms. Now let's go ahead and attach the backpack. And the other beam saber hilts can plug in back here, one on each side, and these can move around. The beam saber effect pieces just easily go in place like that. Now even though this beam effect piece glows under a black light, I think I still prefer the clear ones from model kits. Now for him to actually hold the beam sabers, take this off. Then we can place these hands here, and then you just have him firmly grasp it in hand. And the grip on it is pretty good. It's not going to be falling out anytime soon. The other hand accessory is a trigger finger, and we'll get to that in a bit. The effect pieces also attach onto the wrist hilts as well. Unfortunately, you can't really put it on the wrists anywhere like that. And the pieces can also go on the GUN thingy as well. Now to put the shield on, it pegs in right here. And for this weapon, pop out this hand, then take the trigger hand, put this hand in, and we can place the weapon on there. And I think it looks better like this than with the beat sabers. Now the shield here doesn't look too bad. It's got some nice molding work on here, and his weapon also has some nice detail work. As you can see, they're all very different. Which one's better? They're both different franchises, so it doesn't matter. If you want to see a video where my Optimus Prime figure breaks on me, you can see that over here.